This conference will now be recorded.
That's okay.
We're all set now. We should actually call roll.
Yeah, I'm going to call the meeting to order if everybody is ready.
6:33.
I would like to note that we have a couple visitors. We have our town planner, Abby Pearsall. And we have Maureen Wellman here. Larry is now in the session. Look at Larry, there he is. So I think we've got the full squad.
Good.
Yes, everybody's here.
Excellent. Larry, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. All right, so the first order of business is the Eagle River subdivision on 161 West Main Street.
Wait a minute. What about our visitors?
I welcomed Maureen and Abby.
Oh, I know, but is there a business of theirs that we need to discuss first?
Oh, actually, great question. Maureen, do you have a agenda item that you want us to discuss?
It's not an agenda item, but there is something I'd like to discuss.
Okay.
Is that okay?
In the interest of fairness, to avoid putting you through the whole meeting, why don't we start with whatever your discussion item is?
Okay, I appreciate that. And then I can go finish my supper.
That's right. More than you know, Maureen. More than you know.
All right, and I'll probably take about 10 minutes of your time if that's okay. And I've written something to read rather than, because I want to make sure I get everything in.
Sure.
Okay, so I live at 23 Waterside Lane, and I'm a member of the Clinton Historic District Commission. Last Monday night, January 9, was the third planning and zoning meeting concerning John Rowland's request to change the zoning on 39 Waterside Lane from R20 to R10. He desired the change in order to build a new second house, driveway, and garage on the property. With R20 he couldn't, but with R10 he could. I am here tonight to represent the residents of Waterside Lane who fought back. On Monday, Planning and Zoning voted 5-2, 1 abstention to deny his request. We won the battle, but we are not sure if he will appeal. Our lawyer, Ken McDonald, spoke for us in protest of the change, saying that the application was illegal because it met the definition of spot zoning. In his explanation for his reasoning, he referred to and at times directly quoted from the town of Clinton's plan of conservation and development. He said that the sought after zone change contradicts and runs counter to those needs, concerns, goals, and action items. Some of those needs and concerns that Rowland's application fails to promote are clearly identified in Clinton's comprehensive plan. And if you'd like, I could read to you what he entered into record that was taken from the town plan. And he also included the page number from the plan that addressed his concern. But if I could simplify it, but I'd like to quote a line from page 147 that he didn't say, but it's from the town plan that I love. Throughout Clinton Center and along the shoreline and tidal rivers, scenic and historic vistas abound. Protection of those vistas are part of the natural and cultural heritage and value of Clinton, and it should be a priority. That's end quote. Denying the application for zone change is a prime example of protecting one of those historic vistas.
Stop.
Nobody agrees.
Come on, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Great. Okay.
Denying the application for zone change is a prime example of protecting one of those historic vistas. The vista scenery and views surrounding the structures at 39 Waterside Lane are silent partners to the rich history that the house and barn provide. Waterside Lane is arguably the oldest street in town and has many houses, including 39 Waterside and its barn, that are on the National Registry of Historic Homes. The property also borders on tidal wetlands. Page 79 of the town plan suggests that, quote, Clinton should minimize the siting of new infrastructure and development in coastal areas prone to erosion and inundation from sea level rise or storms, end quote. As I said earlier, we won the battle, but John Rowland could appeal that decision, and if he does, we want to be prepared to continue the fight. I am here tonight to ask the Conservation Commission to formally voice their support in our fight to prevent a zone change at 39 Waterside Lane. Your town plan is very comprehensive and clear in its attempts to protect historic resources in Clinton. Your written support would be a tremendous help to us if we need to continue to battle this issue. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Maureen.
And I didn't know if you had any questions.
So if I remember correctly, 39 Waterside Lane is on the, so
She's
it's-
talking about 23, Nick.
Oh, 20.
no.
Oh, you live at 23. Okay, my apologies.
It's 39.
Maureen, you're talking about 39 Waterside Lane. That's where they want the zoning change?
Yes,
Right.
You want to change it from R20 to R10, only for that lot?
just for that lot.
Okay.
Hmm.
And what is that lot on the border between the R20 and R10 zone on that street?
Yes, it is. 39 Waterside Lane begins the R20 that continues all the way down to the water. Because it's the first one that's bordering the marsh.
Yep, I'm looking at it right now. And it is a gorgeous historical house there.
It happened to have been built by one of my relatives.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Many years ago. I don't know. I don't know him.
Maureen, were you at the hearing?
Yes.
Did residents who neighbored that property object to the attempt to change the zone based on the fact that it would affect their vistas and views?
Well, they didn't directly. They expressed that, and many letters were sent to the planning and zoning from the residents of the street, expressing just what you said. And also that we had a petition that the entire street, maybe 4 exceptions, and one fella's in California, they're in Florida. Everybody whose house I knocked on signed it. I had almost 70 signatures from the street protesting that they wanted to deny the change.
Maureen, he asked about either side of that property.
Okay. One last question. When the zoning board denied the request to change the zone, what was their basis for it? Did they give an exact reason?
Yes, somewhat. I think one of the reasons why it went to 3 meetings was because they were offering to put a deed restriction on the house such that it could never be demolished. It was almost like that was the carrot they were offering us. It was almost like, do this for us, we'll do this for you. But as I said, and there was a letter from Preservation Association from Hartford that said the house is protected. You're not adding anything to it. The house is already protected because it's on the National Historic Registry. So
If you'd like to, I can read for you the actual findings from the minutes that have just been posted. If anybody is interested in them, I can share those with you now.
Sure, that'd be great, Abby. Thank you.
Yes, I think that would be relevant.
Yep, so they voted to deny with 3 findings. The one is the requested zone change does not meet the objective to preserve the historic residential area noted in the Clinton Plan of Conservation and Development. 2, the application as presented is not consistent with the Clinton Plan of Conservation and Development because it would not preserve the character of the existing area, given the existing land pattern and zoning in effect that preserves a less dense area beginning with this property and extending south. And 3, the proposed deed restriction is too weak to preserve the existing historic assets on the site.
Say that last
So there was
one again,
certainly the third one, the proposed deed restriction is too weak to preserve the existing assets on the site.
Okay, thank you.
And they came to those findings after some decent discussion on the character and density and available open land area in the R20 zone that it looked like the existing zoning was preserving at this time. And that was one of the reasons that they chose not to approve.
Right, you let that one in the door, then you've got more right behind it, I'm sure.
Right, exactly. That was another reason we expressed. We didn't want to set a precedent.
Yeah, I think the precedent thing is pretty important because I'm looking at the properties along Waterside Lane and how much property they have, and there would be, you could see where they could actually add, if they subdivide this one, they could subdivide a lot of them.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which
And-
would change the historic vistas. And I would also note, as a past chairman of the Historic District Commission for 12 years, that Waterside Lane is one of the most significant historic streets in the town, with many, many old historic houses and vistas that need as much preservation as possible. So.
Correct
I
me
think-
if I'm wrong, maybe Abby or Sherry, but wouldn't the applicant have to prove like some kind of significant hardship?
No, it wasn't a variance application, so it's not a hardship question.
I see.
So once
Okay.
basically from the date that the decision of the commission publishes in the paper, there's a 15-day appeal period. If an applicant appeals during that
see.
period, the entire record, including the commission's decision, goes up to Superior Court, and that's where that's the next step.
Oh, I
and
see.
yeah, and
Not
that's only if
ZBA.
an appeal is filed.
So at
Okay.
No,
this,
ZBA does not get
No
involved in this one.
ZBA.
This is
Yeah.
the commission sort of acting in its legislative discretion.
Okay,
so
great.
I would
Thank
state
you.
at this stage, given the fact that if there is an appeal that's granted, the record that goes up is anything that was submitted up to the last hearing before the decision, but not anything subsequent to that, which would mean, as far as our weighing in on it, while it would be moot now to weigh in on it, if they go to appeal and there's additional information which is sought, Maureen, if you could let us know, I would say at that time it would be relevant and not moot for us to weigh in on the issue based upon our charge of conserving, the natural resources of the town, which includes the historic resources.
Right, right. And I would actually say, the appeals court, correct, Larry, you're going to know way better than I do, but they could send it back to planning and zoning, couldn't they?
That's correct. And at that stage, if they have another hearing, Maureen, that would be the time to request our commission to weigh in on it so that we can submit it at that hearing. And then I would certainly think it's within our charge to take a position on it because it has to do with the conservation of a historic resource. And as the P&Z recognized, the historic vistas and buildings on that street are certainly, it's within our plan of conservation and development to preserve those.
Well, and it's also within our conservation remit because it'll be right on the wetlands.
Yeah.
So that alone would involve us and get us going.
So I think the issue before us is, do we want to vote on it now? If we feel we have sufficient information, or do we want to wait until we determine if they're going to have more hearings, at which time our position can be submitted as evidence?
Could I say something before you take any kind of a vote? Yes, I would have done this before this last Monday's meeting, but this was the first time that you were meeting. So unfortunately, it occurred 2 days later. I'm just afraid that that might happen again, that there might be the hearing and then you're going to have your meeting to have some kind of vote. So that's why I feel a little pressed for time, but I don't know how the things work up in Middletown. Maybe it's 2 or 3 months away. I don't know.
It would be unlikely. So the decision will publish what, Sherry, I think we submitted it today, so it'll publish in next Thursday's paper.
Okay.
And so that'll start the appeal period from there. So
Okay.
you've got, 3 weeks before, the deadline of appeal is done, and then it would have to go to court and then be remanded back if that's the action that was taken. It could be upheld. And it's all speculative as to whether or not would be an appeal at all. We don't know that yet. So I think it's there will be additional commission meetings between, if something came back to the Planning and Zoning Commission, there would be additional Conservation Commission meetings before then.
Okay, so you feel that any voice of support wouldn't be allowed at that next step of an appeal?
If the commission were to write something now to the Planning and Zoning Commission, it would simply be received under correspondence as a point of information, but it wouldn't be part of a record relative to the application at this point. Right now, that record is closed. If for some reason it was procedurally reopened to re-examine a decision, that would be a different story, and there would be another opportunity at that point. But that's not yet, or we don't know if it will be on the table.
Okay, and if he does appeal to Middlesex, support here would not be allowed up in Middlesex.
Right.
The appeal would be based upon what's in the record. So since we never submitted anything before they closed the record upon which they made the decision, anything we submit after the fact isn't considered. However, if it's sent back by the Superior Court to the P&Z to have another hearing, we can certainly submit our position at that hearing as additional support for opposing the zoning change.
Okay, so there's three things that can happen if it's appealed. The Middlesex can vote yes, overrule the decision, or they can say we have to accept the decision, or there's a third option that they can send it back to planning and zoning.
They can sustain P&Z's decision, they can overrule it, or they can send it back
Okay.
for further, to develop a further record and a further decision.
So, okay, so that the third thing kind of sounds like Pilate washing his hands saying, you handle it?
Yeah, well, no, they'll rule on whatever the points are specifically that the appeal is. And if the appeal is granted, the remedy might be that it goes back to planning and zoning with this new information,
Okay,
and then they have to rule again.
okay, so Roland can submit new information because he's appealing.
Yeah, if the court rules that it goes back to P&Z for reconsideration of an issue, then at that time, when they give a hearing on that reconsideration, we can then submit our position, and it would be relevant then and considered.
Okay.
But Larry, maybe, if the.
We could do a vote now. I mean, we could vote now to submit a letter to P&Z indicating that while it's after the fact, since we have met subsequent to the final hearing and decision, that we would like to put on record our position so that if it is ever sent back for further consideration, they will have our position as a matter of record to consider.
I think if something were to be reopened, it would be timely to submit it when the record is open. So you may resubmit now so they're aware, but to get something just onto the record, it would need to be submitted within that period if it were to occur. Again, we don't at this point know if it's going to go down this road. The other thing to consider too is whether or not at this meeting or at a subsequent Conservation Commission meeting, this group wants to say anything about the POCD or opportunities for further preservation or conservation initiatives along Waterside Lane. And that's certainly something that, multiple commissions can weigh in on from their own perspectives and see whether or not there's something that's under your purview that makes sense to take a closer look for, places that really sort of define the character of the town.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds to me like we've got a lot of new information, Maureen. Thank you very much. It sounds to me like we sort of get our powder ready for if we see it returned. If it is, we will definitely vote to put a letter on record, and we'll put a letter on record.
Okay, Nick, then let me submit this. Do we want to at least put the P&Z on notice with a short communication that the commission has voted that if in fact this request for a zoning change on Waterside Lane ever comes back to P&Z, that our commission would be interested in providing an opportunity to give our position on it.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Larry. You want to put a motion on the floor on that?
Yeah, I'd like to move that the Conservation Commission send a letter to P&Z notifying them that if there is ever another point where a zoning change on Waterside Lane from R20 to R10 is put before the P&Z, that the Conservation Commission would request the opportunity to submit its position on the issue before there's a decision.
Perfect. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Or Sherry's got that. Bert seconded the motion.
Yeah, Sherry's gonna have to listen to the tape for this one.
Yep. And
Very-
Sherry, if you have a question, just give me a call on my cell phone and I'll go over it with you.
Yeah.
I'll listen to the record tomorrow.
Yeah,
The second motion was,
I'll put the letter, I'm gonna, if we agree to this, I'll put the letter together and then get your input on it, and then I'll send it to Sherry. So all in favor of this motion on the floor? I'm not gonna repeat it.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Okay. And Maureen, I would just say that if it ever comes back to P&Z, to also advise your attorney to get in contact with us if he wants to acquire a more formal submission by us to
Okay,
submit on behalf of your case.
that sounds great. I certainly appreciate it.
Okay,
Hey, thanks a lot, Maureen. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks so much.
thank you.
Really important to keep these areas in pristine condition, so,
Got no voice. They got no voice. We got to speak for them.
yeah. You know, the geese speak all the time, though, right along there.
All right, thank you all very much.
Thanks,
Take care.
Maureen.
You. Wow.
All right. So we've got the Eagle River subdivision.
The re-subdivision is substantially similar to the application that was referred to you previously. So the commission does have comments from you on that matter. The one thing that has changed is that the applicant worked with Rich Snarsky and is redelineating the wetland resources. For the first time, I think it was January 3rd or 4th, we had a resubmitted plan that actually shows inland wetlands in addition to tidal wetlands on the site. And those will be determined by an elevation difference that Rich needs to go back out and take a look at. So right now, the Planning and Zoning Commission requested that everything be put on pause, that it go back to inland wetlands for their determination of the delineation status, which still needs some additional field work done. And then we'll come back to the commission, I believe, March 13th. So if there's additional comments that folks are looking to give on this, I know Sherry put into the record the previous referral that you did when this came through several months ago. But if there are new comments that you'd like to make, the period for that is certainly still open.
Yeah.
Well, I want to make a correction on it anyway, on the letter that we were going to send in. I just wanted to clarify because Bob Grabarek was wanted to make sure that we made clear that if we wanted it open to the public, it would only be that section along the river and not the whole open space parcel. Of course, if they would open up the whole open space parcel to the public, but they are saying that they're limiting access. So I'm just kind of making sure that if they're going to limit public access, that they at least keep it open along the river to create that link.
Could I ask, I just don't recall all the particulars. How many acres are we talking about with regard to this subdivision?
I think the open space parcel is like 8.57, somewhere in that range.
Yes.
And if the open space is 8.5, what's the total amount of land involved? Somewhere around 85?
No,
Acres?
nowhere near that.
No.
I've got to go back and look. It's like a 2-acre parcel and a 3-acre parcel. For one is pre-existing, has already been developed, and one would be a new building lot.
And
I'd have to go back and get to the
they
exact
want to
numbers.
give open space of 8.5?
Most of that 8.5 is either in floodplain, in the tidal buffer area, or within the actual wetland resource areas. And they're referring to it right now, the way the applicant has presented it is as critical habitat and best, sort of left for preservation purposes rather than public access. And they've been holding fairly firm to that.
Right, and that's why, because we have the town open space property to the north of it, and I believe another one to the south of it. I was just asking for just a little like easement, in other words, along the river, not access to the whole parcel, but just a link between those to get from one to the other.
Well, let me ask you, what's their intent on this open space parcel? Does it stay within the ownership of the respective lot owners, or do they intend to give it to the town or to one of the conservation commissions in town?
So they have identified the Red Wing Foundation as the recipient of the land. We have not yet seen draft deed documents or restriction language at this point, and that's one of the things that we've requested that they provide. But that hasn't, aside from the fact that there's a letter of interest, that's what we've seen so far.
Okay, and you're talking for what? For P&Z? Are you a member or are you?
No, I'm the new town planner.
The new.
Town planner.
I'm sorry, Abby. I didn't realize that.
Totally fine. I'm new.
Okay, all right. Can I just submit
You
one
weren't
thing?
here last meeting.
Let me just submit one thing in this regard, with regard to open space. If there is going to be a presentation of open space to one of the 2 conservation commissions in committees in town, either that be Red Wing or the Clinton Conservation, I think the P&Z, as the planner, you should let P&Z know they need to get further information as to the status of Red Wing. Because it's our understanding that and again, I'm talking as being a board member of the Clinton Land Conservation Trust for the last 15, 16 years. It's our understanding that there is no active stewardship of any property that has been given to Red Wing. And, one of the obligations set forth by the code for national land trusts is that they have to set out a stewardship plan and then to follow it. So if in fact this plan is going to go forward with with this land being donated to Red Wing, I feel that the P&Z should really get Red Wing there to state exactly what is the status and nature of that organization at this time. Is it in a position where it has funds to fund stewardship of the property on a yearly basis? Because it's my belief it hasn't been done in other properties that have been given to them.
I think the main thing with Red Wing is the properties that they protect are maybe more critical, and they are protected from people. So they don't go through like the state, which requires all of those, management regulations and all of that kind of stuff, and access from a public road and all of those kind of things. When you get open space granted, through the state, if you get, in other words, if you get grant money from the state, it's usually at a requirement, like it was with the Weiss Love Day, that it be open to the public, that there be a management program, that there be access to it from certain points. And I think that their organization is more of a private organization that just saves the open space to protect it from people, which is,
let me just submit.
Their properties are that way, that they don't really allow access to them.
Yeah, well, my statement is this. If they are submitting this subdivision to get, one, by the land they give away as open space to get tax advantage, and number 2, if they're doing that because of the provision in our zoning that you have to give a 10% set aside. If we still have that 10% set aside, then the 10% that's set aside should be open space capable of being given access to the public. They're putting conditions on it that are not necessarily consistent with that 10% set aside regulation that P&Z has with regard to new subdivisions. Hopefully P&Z will look into that. You can't donate open space, get a tax advantage, and comply with the 10% set aside requirement by doing it, and at the same time say you can't open this up to the public.
At the same time, Larry, there are places where public really shouldn't belong. So, I mean,
Yeah, but
know,
what you have
sometimes
is-
you could just
you have
protect
it
an area
decided
for
by
a
who?
purpose. Huh?
But you're having it to being decided by a private body who has an interest in wanting to preserve it just for the privacy of the two lot owners and not opening it up for the rest of the general public, while they still are looking for the tax advantage and to get the 10% set aside credit.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
we-
think we need to do a little investigation here. I agree actually with both things. I mean, this is right along the water. So, you know, the question is, do we really want the public walking there? Maybe we do. I mean, it's an amazing piece of property. So it'd be good for us to acquire as a land trust, but
Particularly if it's contiguous to other open space on each side, such that you could have a animal corridor or other walkthroughs now or in the future.
Maybe, you know, I mean, their tax exempt situation, if that's the reason that they're doing it. Actually, I think that they're leaving like 60% of the property. It's more like a conservation subdivision. But I think that that might, I've just distracted myself now. Never mind, it'll come back to me. Yeah, no, the PA 490 thing, you know, any private person can own a large piece of woodland and say that they're not going to develop it and get a tax exempt and pay almost no property taxes for that. So you don't necessarily, they may not be, I don't
But
know
how
if they're
about the
going with
10%
the town
set aside?
10% thing, or this is just how they want to do it and then keep the rest that way. Maybe they're doing it that way. I don't know.
They still have to comply with the 10% set aside of the subdivision, if that's still in effect in our planning
Yeah,
regulations.
and they have well over, it's over 10% that they're
Definitely,
providing.
over 10%.
Like
But if they're going
60%.
to comply with it, there shouldn't be conditions on that preventing public use. I mean, the whole purpose of the set aside is to get public to set aside open space.
But not only for public use. Not every open space needs to be for public use.
Sure.
And that's just saying, because the parcel, you know, it's still going to be for public use if we keep that easement along the edge of the river or whatever, you know. I'm just saying, if it's town property or the land trust or whatever, that's different. But if it's a private organization and it's not really that they're leaving 10%. They're leaving most of the property alone. And I think that they're probably, you know, doing that in accordance with the other state regulations or whatever. I don't know, but.
well, it is.
And
It's
it's Mr.
bounded by
Grabrick.
so much water that I think probably at a minimum 50% is unbuildable.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. So anyway,
It may not even be passable.
it would be less that way anyhow, really.
Well, why don't we do the following? And I'll look for somebody to make a motion on this, but why don't we do, write a letter to planning and zoning saying, you know, we support the land being transferred to Red Wing with the condition that there's an easement along the river for
And
town.
provided
use.
that Red Wing submits an appropriate plan of stewardship for the property that's going to be handed over to them.
Yeah, both. So stewardship plus an easement for the public to walk along the river. Does that make sense? It's sort of like,
But don't they already own the property? It's not being handed over to them. I mean, I don't know if I would,
they're
Right.
handing the,
but anyway, yeah, go ahead. Whatever.
I think that's a good motion, Nick.
so I need somebody to make it.
Well, hold
I'll
on
make
one
that motion.
second. I want to just make sure. So Kathy just said they already own it.
Well,
Red Wing
not Red
already-
Wing, not
No,
Red
Red
Wing,
Wing does
the
not own it.
owner. I mean,
Okay.
it's the
Okay.
town giving them anything. I mean,
Okay. I just wanted to be clear about that.
it's
Thank you.
being given to them. Yeah.
Mary Jo, anytime somebody submits a subdivision, there's a requirement under the zoning laws that there has to be a
Yep.
10% set aside for open
Right.
space. What they want to do is give 10% or more, but then they want the condition that it not really be allowed open space for, open for the public's use.
Public use.
Yeah,
Right.
and we don't have to, we as the town or the Planning and Zoning Commission don't have to agree to that condition they want to put on with regard to the set aside they're required to make. And so I think our input,
It already depends on why they don't want people in there. Maybe there is something, maybe there is something specific that they're trying to protect in there.
yeah,
That,
but the
The
10%.
the information in the record at P&Z so far is more to do with NDDB elements and some of that. This is the sensitivity of the area for wildlife. That's the thing there. And then the other piece is some of the response to comments that I provided to them with some of these questions asked had more to do with liability issues and who is going, and again, who's going to take on, maintain, and absorb the liability of that, because it didn't sound like something Red Wing was prepared to do.
And Abby, I would ask, did they submit any scientific study or environmental report saying as to the sensitivity requiring them to prevent public use of the property?
Nope.
So it's just they're stating that.
Yes.
Exactly. It's a bald-faced statement with no support. And so what I'm saying is, if it's going to be given to Red Wing, they still have the 10% set aside. So that set aside, we should be able to require the walkway along the river, as Nick suggested. And also, if they're going to give that 8.5 acres to Red Wing, we should at least get evidence from Red Wing that they have a stewardship plan that they're going to implement. And number two, that they have the financial wherewithal to do that and implement that stewardship plan every year. It's my understanding they don't have the follow through on the other properties that they've had.
All right.
well, I guess that's why the one over there by your place then, Larry, by that pond that we were just looking at with the open space, that's a Red Wing property too. And he said that wasn't open to the public either.
The pond near my property is the Clinton Land Conservation Trust. Are you talking about some other pond somewhere?
I
Over
don't
by
know.
Carter Hill.
What is it?
The one down near Davis Pool, that area, that's a Red Wing property.
Yes.
Down that road.
Yeah, the Carter Hill Road, it's in back of Carter Hill Road. It borders on the Westbrook Land Trust land.
Oh, that's Lake Laconia. That's,
Yes.
Yes.
yeah, okay, no, the only land trust property is Clinton Land Trust, which is at the opening that goes into the lake from the Monontokesik River. The rest of it's owned by the Westbrook Conservation, either the town of Westbrook, I believe it's the Conservation Commission stewards that.
Yeah.
Red Wing
Yeah.
has nothing to do with that lake.
Yeah, no, I'm just talking about that place where we went to look at the open space parcels by that pond there, because that had Red Wing property around it too. And when I asked him if that could be open to the public, he said he really wasn't sure. But anyway, that's it. That's a different thing.
Okay. So it sounds to me like we write a letter to the Planning and Zoning Commission saying, you know, regards to the division 61 Street, the Conservation Commission would like to preserve an easement so that there is ability to walk along the river. And B, they would like to see a stewardship plan that's adequately funded from the Red Wing Foundation.
If it is to be given to the Red Wing
If it is
Foundation. Yeah.
given to the Red Wing Foundation.
I'll make that motion, Nick.
Okay. God, I've got a lot of letters to write.
Okay, so wait, Larry's making a motion?
The motion is what Nick Webb just stated. I'll make that motion.
All right, the motion is two things, Sherry. One is that the 10% land should be an easement along the river for public. And two, that the Red Wing, if it is given to the Red Wing Foundation, the Red Wing Foundation should provide a plan of stewardship with proof of funding.
To sustain it. Yeah.
So wait, they should submit a stewardship
A plan of
plan,
stewardship.
a stewardship plan with, you added
Proof of
something.
adequate funding.
With
proof of adequate funding. That's quite a motion. Do I have a second on the floor?
Yes, yeah.
I'll
MJ?
second it, Bert.
Okay, I think MJ got it first, Bert. I'm gonna give this one to MJ.
Okay, okay, by me.
So we can't really, I mean, we can ask this, right? We can write this letter and we can ask that, but, you know, I remember when we looked at those properties that Kathy was talking about before, the guy from, was it the guy from Red Wing? I don't know. They don't
Yeah.
have a lot of money.
No.
So I
That's
don't
why they
know.
don't-
You know, the alternative is they give it to the land trust. They give it to the Clinton Land Trust.
That's what I was wondering. If that's
That
what
would be
we
the question. If somebody else
if
came
that's-
forward, if another organization came forward to say, we can take this and can provide stewardship to enable public access,
Right.
that's an alternative.
Right.
And as a board member of the Clinton Land Conservation Trust, I can tell you that the board is willing to consider all set-asides. They would take a look at it, and as long as there weren't environmental problems, they have been accepting many acreages over every year, and that we have adequate funds to provide for proper stewardship of the property. We have a war chest of over $500,000, much more than $500,000, from which we use the interest to fund many different things, including the stewardship and conservation of our acreage, which is close to 900 acres now in town.
Yeah. Okay.
So if Red Wing doesn't have the financial ability to provide proper stewardship over the years for this property and to provide evidence of it, then the Clinton Land Trust would certainly be wish to be considered as someone to receive that. And then we would have to check out the property and make sure. But we haven't been approached yet or requested.
Right. Okay. So all in favor, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All
Did
opposed?
someone second the motion, by the way?
We did. We had MJ second the motion.
Okay.
Okay, so that carries. I'll write that letter.
And Nick, if you want to call me on that, I'll talk with you further.
Yeah, I'll send you, I'll circulate the draft of the letter to everybody because that way that everybody can weigh in.
Okay.
Okay. we need to approve the minutes from December 8th.
Okay, so
I'll
about the,
approve. Sorry,
No.
what?
about the
I'll
minutes,
approve. Go ahead. Kathy, go ahead.
in the minutes, it says that I'm on the sustainability committee, but I'm not. I'm not a member of sustainability.
Really? I thought you were.
Not this whole last year.
Oh, I did not know that.
That's right. I'm just kind of a communicator between the two at this point,
Okay.
which is very hard to do because I don't know what the status of sustainability is right now. But anyway, that's another story.
I can help with that later.
Okay.
Well, do we want to approve the minutes with that correction?
That sounds good.
I'll second that.
That's MJ that seconds that. All in favor?
Aye.
I think I might have to abstain. I don't think I was able to make the December
I don't
8th
think you
meeting.
were there.
Yep.
So we have 5 approvals. Although, Mark, I don't think we can know whether or not you're voting in favor because you're both off camera as well as.
I'm voting in favor.
Excellent.
Sorry, not feeling great. I'm just kicking back here. You don't want to see it.
No, I can feel it. I'm right there with you, actually.
He's in deep remote.
Days. Okay. So we've got 5 in favor, 1 abstain.
Mhm.
Okay. So let's, why don't we rock and roll through the workshops?
Okay.
Because I don't think we did anything on pollinator pathway. It's not really as relevant during the winter months.
No, not right now.
Okay, anybody else? No. Dark Skies project, I don't think I've really done anything. Has anybody else done anything on this?
I'm writing something up right now. I have a bunch of information with different, different aspects of dark skies, different, benefits
Okay.
and such. And
Yeah, I read a lot of those links that you sent me, Kathy. Thank you.
a lot of good information. I'm just putting it all together in some kind of a flowing order and with the list of, sources and such. It's almost done.
So,
But then I don't know what to do with
I
it.
look at what we've done so far. We've sort of fixed the commercial dark skies that, they now have to, any new commercial property
Mhm.
has to conform to the dark skies. But there are 2 areas that are now left, and one is government, local government, as well as residential.
That's right.
So I'm looking forward to the Dark Skies Subcommittee report.
Oh, very good. Okay. We'll have that wrapped up soon.
Excellent. Residential food composting. I had a quick call with Schweitzer.
Oh. And?
It was not the right person, but they will get back to me. So I kind of figured that the only way for us to have a significant difference is to enlist the only major trash company in the space to figure out if there's something we can do for them to help us collect the food waste composting.
Wait a minute. What happened to the transfer station method? Have we not heard anything from anybody yet? It's the
We have
simplest way.
not heard anything. I went to a town council member and asked her to find out what was going on.
Okay.
My understanding is that we're waiting back from the state to hear about the
that's a
application that
year
was
ago.
submitted.
That was a year ago.
They're still wait. My understanding from Carl is that we're still waiting.
Are we sure that the application was submitted?
I'm told that it was.
I want to call the state myself and find out if they have the application.
Well, it would have gone to deep. I just don't believe it was submitted.
I don't think it was, and we have to get moving on this. It shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah, because everything I was reading was Deep was approving these things within weeks, so.
I don't think we should be sitting here waiting any longer for them to do this. Is there somebody I can call at the state, or is that not, will I get in trouble for that or something? I don't know.
You know what? I'll talk to Carl. I'll see if he can give me the,
This
I
should
mean, you
not,
could do that as a private citizen, Kathy. You can do
I
anything
can't.
as a private citizen.
I can't.
You just can't say you're representing the Conservation Commission.
yeah,
Right.
I can
don't know who to-
call Carl, because we had this
Right.
conversation a year and a half ago. I can say, hey, how is this progressing? And I don't think that's violating any,
Yeah, I mean, the last conversation that I had was I thought that we were expecting something in the January, February timeframe, and that's the information that came to me. But my understanding is that it's also been kind of radio silence from the state that the application was submitted. I don't know the date of application submittal, but that we're waiting.
Okay, so January,
I
February,
think it's submitted.
wait till March and we don't hear anything. Can we ask again?
No, I'm gonna go now. I think it's already been too long, so I'm gonna go now to Carl and say if can I get a copy of it? And I'll mention that I talked to Schweitzer and that there may be potential interest of them
Would
participating.
Schweitzer be cheaper than Blue Earth?
Well, Blue Earth's extraordinarily expensive. I think Carl's suggestion, if we can pull it off, is so far superior to Blue Earth.
What, the transfer station thing, the windrows?
Yeah,
Yeah, I know that's, but we've been waiting over a year for it,
I understand that.
for that very thing. So we need to get this done. We need to hear back.
Yes, I'm with you, Catherine.
Anyway,
I will say that the sense of the commission is we got to get this thing on the road.
yeah. So,
I met somebody from Deep the other day, and I'm trying to remember if I can, I don't know what area he's in.
if I know who to call, I'll call him. All I need to know is who to talk to.
Yeah, well, let me call Carl first. I'll talk to Carl.
Okay. But
All
if there's no action, I'm telling you, I'm going for it.
And I fully expect you to.
And I will, thank you. Anyway, okay.
Japanese knotweed, no
Nothing.
progress on that. Land acquisition, did I ever send out all the PowerPoint that I did?
I didn't get it.
Okay, so the action is I've got to send out both the PowerPoint that I've put together after interviewing Catherine and Larry, you know, the two people on our commission that bear the scars of land acquisition. But I'd love everybody to comment on it so we can have a formalized document that will help us in the future.
Okay.
So I will send that out to everybody. I thought I did, but I guess I didn't.
I didn't see.
The holidays probably caught up with me.
Oh, yeah.
Kathy, I'll send it to you as well, and I will also include in the email the ranking model that we all put together on that. Okay?
Good.
Okay.
Sounds great. Okay.
Amendments to bylaws?
I don't, why? Yeah, I don't, didn't we do this? Did we do
I thought we
this?
did this, yeah.
Yeah.
Sherry, what are we doing? Oh.
Nick, these were the ones that I sent you back in August. It was after the other part, and I suggested changes. And recirculated them again. I thought you were going to recirculate what I sent to you. I sent you a draft.
Okay.
I can send it out, the draft out to everybody.
Let's do that, and then let's vote on this.
At least one of us will get it.
Well, no, I got it. I thought it went to everybody.
I should say, at least one of us will see it.
I'm in my mind here. So I apologize, Sherry. You've done a great work on it and unacceptable.
Okay.
Nick, when all else fails, you can say the dog ate my homework, and I can see him sitting in the bed behind you right now. So you can see the culprit.
What's going on, Dex?
The dog
That
that's not.
happened to my daughter.
The dog looks guilty too, so
Made her
we'll
homework,
accept
brought
that.
it in to the teacher goes, "That's not an excuse." The teacher had already said, "If it happens, bring it in." She did.
Yeah. Well, Dexter's really not a very active participation person in very much of anything. See,
He's turning his back to you.
He's now shifting his place on the bed and will.
He's avoiding eye contact.
I think he's bored with the conversation. Anyway,
Okay,
I don't think, Mark, I don't think there's any movement on 3236 Carter Hill Road unless we can find some funding somewhere.
okay.
Is that correct, Mark?
Yep, I believe so.
Okay.
By the way, I scouted out another property this weekend.
Yeah?
The like the 20-acre one up by the power lines on 81. Something to look at there. Beautiful property, but very hard to access. So anyway, I might contact the realtor on that one too, and it's at a decent price.
Oh, okay.
I actually forgot what address it is, but
It's on
Mark, is
80.
that developable land or is it wetlands, etc.?
it actually has a small chunk of the Indian River running through the corner of it. So
Oh,
it
wow.
does have some nice, it's got kind of a nice meandering piece of the Indian River and a little swamp. But
Yeah.
it's also like a mountain with a beautiful like ledges and views on the top of it. It's a really pretty lot, and it's something like 20 acres. So I'm looking it up right now, but maybe
Wow.
I can send out some info.
Yeah, I want to see it.
So if it's got a lot of ledge and it's got water and wetland, there's probably a limited area which could be built on, which means maybe it would be a reasonable price then.
Right, yeah. I think the listing has the building lot piece, and it is like a small piece of the
Nice.
land because of the slope is insane on the majority of it, and there's wetlands down on the bottom.
Well, you know, if they ultimately sell that land, we could also approach the buyer with a question as to whether they would be willing to separate out the ledge and the other area, which for preservation, you know what I mean?
Yep. I'm trying to find the
So
address.
I'm looking at the property right now. It's 23.5 acres on Killingworth Turnpike.
That's it.
Wow.
And I'm looking at the elevation. It's got a serious elevation.
It's really pretty. Like the terrain is beautiful. I walked the whole thing.
Really?
It was good
What are
exercise.
they looking for? Do you know? Any idea?
180 grand.
Yeah, that's what it says.
23 acres?
3.5 acres.
And the tricky thing about it, I think, is it's not easy to access. You have to go in kind of along the power lines at the top of the hill. Is really the only way to get in. I tried to go around and get in from the other side, but there was no way that I could figure out how to get in there. So you'd have to create like a small place to enter up on 81 right near the power lines, which I think is actually what the plan might have on it.
It'd be interesting to see because there's some interesting property behind it as well.
Yep.
It'd be interesting to see what else it abuts to.
There's,
Yeah, if it's,
Yeah,
if
there's a
it's
lot of CLNP
contiguous,
land.
oh, I see. It's on 81?
Yeah,
Yep.
I see
there's
it.
no street address. And you're right, it's got a little bit of, little piece of the Indian River.
Hmm.
It's a few parcels north of Evergreen.
Oh, you know what? That would
Yep.
link to the Jesse Buell Forest.
It does, that's right.
Oh,
Yep.
you see, that's
I actually drove
also
in,
very interesting.
I drove in from the other side past that Buell Forest, and you can get pretty close, but not quite on the
Right,
road.
right. But it's close. It's,
does it actually make contact with Jesse Buell or no?
I think it does. You just can't drive all the way to it. That's all. I think the land actually borders it.
yeah, I
Because
believe
we
it.
might be able to get the land trust interested in that as well then.
I think-
With regard to a purchase.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's a much more reasonable amount.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing, yeah.
Yeah.
And Mark, did you notice any significant features? Like you said, there's a part near the water or on the water, and then there's the big elevations, the rock elevations.
I would say
Okay.
a great feature is just the views from up on the top of the one hilltop. It's actually beautiful. I was like, man, this would be a nice place for a house. Up there on the top, like you're looking out.
But you'd have a lot of
It's
blasting.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would. You'd have to either only do a crawl space or you'd have a hell of a lot of blasting to do, it seems.
I think that looks like a good spot.
That one
Yeah,
does.
it's a pretty cool place.
I think if that connects up to the Jesse Buell Forest, you can get some kind of a way through. That looks like a good spot.
Well, you could use the parking for Jesse Buell, that area to link in, to go in through Jesse Buell and then continue a trail system up into these areas that Mark is talking about.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I'm looking at our town GIS right now, and it says it borders something called the Connecticut Light and Power.
Yeah, it looks like Eversource land in between the forest and this parcel.
Yeah.
And Tamarack seems to go up. I don't know if that's what you were driving up or coming in the other way.
It was.
Mhm.
Yep.
So yeah, so there's a 22-acre CLNP parcel in between open space and this, but typically CLNP is not, they're not necessarily putting anything there unless something were, to go to solar and they've got land right there and they want to put a substation or something to connect, but that would be the only kind of thing that typically their properties would be used for. So there may be an opportunity to talk about easements or other stuff there too.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's very cool, Mark.
Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
neat.
Wow.
I recommend going and checking it out, but don't do what I did and park at the bottom and walk straight up the mountain to the top. Like park on the power lines and go in that way if you can.
Mark, it sounds like you're still recovering from that walk.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, cool.
Right. So I don't know. I mean, maybe
Well, Mark,
we.
why don't you call the realtor, find out the deal on it, and then we'll
Okay.
proceed from there. Send us all out an email on it.
All right.
And, if we need to set up a meeting for a walkthrough, we'll do that.
Okay. Sounds good. Will do.
Okay. Going back to 32 and 36, do you want to keep this on the agenda, or do you want to just, what do you want to do with that?
I don't think there's going to be a chance with those.
Yeah, I don't think so either, which is a shame because again, that's good property, but I think we're gonna have to hold that off.
We will.
Well, maybe if we wait a little while and it doesn't sell,
Right.
I guess there'd be an opportunity, because if it doesn't sell, you know, they might be more open to.
You're talking about the Camp Hadar property.
Well, it's
Up in
near
that area.
Camp Hadar.
Oh.
It's not actually.
Oh, okay.
Anybody talked to him over at Camp Hadar lately? Larry, have you talked to
No.
David Fisher at all?
No, we had extensive discussions about 5, 6 years ago, but nothing since. That
Hmm.
fell through. Could have even been 10 years ago.
I think it was closer to 10.
Yeah.
No, maybe even longer than, yeah, about 10 years probably. Well, that's the
Yeah.
last time I talked to him, but I'm just wondering if there's anything that I know that we can never probably afford ever what he wants, but if he does a subdivision there, he's going to be leaving open space, and we should be
Yes.
keeping an eye on that because it'll be quite a good sized open space and a great one to accumulate to
Yeah,
compensate.
he's my neighbor basically there, so I border that Camp Hadar. And every now and then I'll see him. Next time I see him, I'll try to ask what's going on, but I rarely see him even since the town, even though it borders my house.
Yeah. Does he come out very often? I don't see him very often, so yeah. But
Rarely.
anyway, if you do see him, find out if he has anything on his mind, because again, he's going to have to leave open space there no matter what he does. So we can kind of, if he has anything in mind, we can try to work with him and get the best out of it we can with just whatever he has to leave, and make sure that it is areas that, that we can access, and it's not all wetlands, and it's, whatever. He's going to do something with it eventually.
Yep.
Okay, so back to my question. Do you want it on the agenda or off the agenda?
Oh, sorry about that. 32 to 36, should we take that off?
I think we take it off until something changes.
Maybe we should replace it with the Route 81
Yeah.
parcel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there an address to that?
There isn't.
No, it doesn't.
There's not one listed. I can check with the assessors and see if there's anything else in their records, but I'm not seeing it.
Okay.
Yeah, usually unless there's a building on it, they don't get a number, a street number until there's a structure.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Any bills and correspondence? Sure.
Okay. There's not an actual bill, but we did get another request for a donation, sort of, from Connecticut River Coastal, but we know what happens. It's a Connecticut River Coast Conservation District.
So I did, just so everybody knows, I did submit the budget. I got some pushback from Carl. Sherry was very helpful in submitting the groups that we work with, and we'll see where it goes. After we did that, I haven't heard anything. And Sherry, did you hear anything after that?
No, I just sent what I said. It was just the two of them that we give donations to each year, but I didn't hear anything. So I just thought I would tell you they did ask. They said,
Say what?
As 2022 comes to a close, we are asking one last time for your support.
Yeah.
So
we have no ability to fund it.
no, not this
Not a
year.
line item in our budget. Fix that for next year.
Hopefully. Okay.
So we have a lot of money in our
correspondence.
operating budget.
There's other correspondence. We got a notice I sent to you, forwarded to you today, The cause annual meeting is going to be on March 9th, 2023. At this point, they have not opened it for registration. And then there's
Is that an in-person or a virtual, Sherry?
they're just coming up with it now. They haven't
Okay.
given us
All right.
anything. Right now, it was just a save the date type thing,
Okay.
but it is coming. Oh, it will be in person
Okay.
at Eversources Auditorium in Berlin, Connecticut.
Okay.
So that's that. Oop. Let me see what else.
Okay.
Oh, I sent you today a copy of the planning and zoning minutes that Abby was reading from. I sent them out to you later this afternoon, and so you can read it. It's also available online on the town's website by going to agendas and minutes and then going to planning and zoning.
Okay. Interesting. I have not been on my email for a while, so I missed that.
Yeah. And let's see. Yeah. Yes, that was it. One less me. Yep, that's all the correspondence.
Cool. I'm not sure there's really anything on the operating budget.
Oh, I got your final one for 22-23. Hold on. Let me just catch up to you. 22-23. Okay, for 22-23, you spent, so you had a budget of $1,000 and you expended $544.59. So the rest of it went back to the general fund. So that closes out your 21-22.
Oh, okay.
So we can take that off the agenda.
Yep. And the proposed budget, I guess we'll just wait to hear. Everybody contributed.
I have a budget
Yeah.
meeting with Carl
So
tomorrow and can add this to the list of things to sort of just ask about status.
Cool.
Okay,
That's great.
your current budget, the one now, 22-23.
Yes.
Okay. You have a budget of $1,630, of which you have spent $65 for Kakiwik. And I'm about to do your, the cause in January is when they ask for their annual donation, your membership, rather, membership dues. So that's, I believe, I think it's around $45. So I'll be doing a purchase order, or I'll be sending that to bookkeeping.
Okay, great. And so
So
that means we've got,
as long as you want to do that, you should do it by motion.
can we make our annual subscription to Kakiwik? Can I have a motion to make the $45 donation?
I move that we make the $45 donation to Kakiwik.
I'll second
I
that.
would say not to, excuse me, don't put a dollar amount in, unless you want me to do it once I look at the form that's
Okay.
on my desk.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's-
okay,
To send in the annual membership. to-
okay.
Not Khaki Bricks, I'm sorry, it's Cause.
Oh, cause,
Cause.
WS.
That's the one that I just mentioned, their annual meetings coming up in March. So there's a motion by Kathy,
we have a second.
Bert seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I,
Mark, your voting even sounds pathetic right now.
thanks.
And it's a long meeting tonight too. So,
I know. I apologize. It does mean that we've got opportunities to, on the stuff that we've already sort of put aside, the pollinator pathway, the residential food composting and Japanese nutweed, we actually have money to spend before June of this year.
Mhm.
So just keep that in the back of your head.
Right.
When I submit the budget, the idea was that we were going to do all kinds of, and we have done some education, we've done some, but we haven't built the posters out that would cost money.
Right.
So, that's something that we can do and probably should do before June.
Okay, we're working on it.
All right, good. I don't think we need to talk about sustainable CT certification anymore. Do we, Kathy?
Can we go back to proposed budget again? I
Sure.
was busy writing down. Did you send us a copy of what you proposed to Carl?
Yes.
Sue?
Yes, I can send it.
Yeah, would you?
I will.
I'd like, yeah, web to send out.
Okay. I will send that to you guys.
Okay.
What's this $80,000 dollars to update the plan of conservation development?
So this is a two-part CIP budget request through the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so every 10 years, the POCD is required by state statute to be updated. If it's not done, then some discretionary funding sources for the town can go away. We may not be quite as eligible for certain grant funding. It's also sort of that defining vision and was the cornerstone for things like 39 Waterside that was the basis of decision for the commission. So so the last plan was done in 2015. By the end of 2025, we need to have a new plan either substantially completed or adopted. And so this is the budget to enable us in two parts, so it's not such a big ask, to get consulting services, do some really significant and robust public outreach, have some better mapping that really kind of helps us do things like identify and prioritize some of the open space pieces, look at what our linkages are for pedestrian kinds of things, trails, that type of stuff, and look at really sort of where do we want to be going in the next 10 years. And so so the commission voted to recommend that funding so that Carl would have something to take to council when it's time.
Right.
So that's good then, because then we should be getting involved in updating the whole plan and yeah. All right.
Absolutely. Yep. There will be a significant effort and stakeholder groups put together and sort of we really want to make this a really robust opportunity for folks to get involved. I think, sometimes there's a lot of participation and sometimes, the same folks come through and give the same ideas, and we really want to get out to as many people as we can. So, so I think this commission is going to have a real significant role in helping make sure that happens.
Yay. I like it. All right. Cool. Oh. Okay, what's the status of Sustainable Connecticut? What's the Sustainable Committee? Are they still around? What's going on?
They are. So I'm meeting with them on the 26th of this month. They haven't met in a while. It sounds like after the application was submitted and Sustainable CT came back with a bunch of feedback for them, things kind of stopped for a little bit. Eric Bergman and I met. He is going to stay on through probably an August application. Right now, one of the threshold issues for certification is meeting the equity components. And so that is where they're focusing their initial attention, because if you don't have an equity toolkit done under Sustainable Connecticut's parameters, your application doesn't pass go. And so that's what we're sort of refocusing on now. I'm spending some time going through the various comments from the reviewers at Sustainable Connecticut. I've connected a little bit with Jess LeClaire, and the next piece for me is going to be getting really into those comments and seeing what needs to be updated. I think there were some things in item 3 from this group that we'll probably come back with some more questions on. I know there's some stuff with the open space plan, and
to find out what more we need to do to,
So what's going to happen is in each action item, the folks who were sort of putting together and responsible for those things, I'm going to be helping them come up with sort of the list of things. Okay, we need the following additional information so we can package it up the way that they want to see it to hopefully certified with an application in August.
Good, because that's a really difficult process, and somebody has been needing to help us out with this, because it's crazy, honestly. Now, that's good. All right, that's good. That's all I wanted to know.
All right, well, we should leave this on our agenda because last year I provided some pretty significant help to Eric when he was putting this together. It wouldn't shock me if we get involved again.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of work. All of this is a lot of work. We need to mesh together and get this stuff done.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, moving on to membership. I reached out to Chris Anaskovich again because he's the head of the town council, saying we needed another Republican member. I'll see if we get anything back from him. Library. I'm going to check out the infrared camera myself and take some pictures around town and then put it up.
Oh, wow. All right. Yeah.
And if you haven't and are interested in where your house is leaking hot air, this thing is amazing. So I will, I'll send around some pictures when I do it. I'm going to check it out this weekend if it's still there.
I'm interested.
Okay.
But then that will help me in terms of putting together some public information about it so that we can generate more interest in it. I got to tell you, the Clinton Library, vastly underused. It's an amazing.
I know. They have so much there.
We're on the meeting.
All right. Let's see if we can lock this down. We've got referral to planning and zoning. We've already done that one. Any additions to the regular meeting next month?
I'd like to raise just one, especially since we have a town planner here. By the way, Abby, are you going to be at all our meetings or just back and forth?
As I'm getting my feet under me, what I'm doing is going to more of the meetings from folks, and then there'll probably be a time where I come to either every other one or kind of get on a rotation where there's things you need me for, or if we're actively working on something, then I'll be here, and we'll go from there.
Okay, well, since we have you here tonight, I just want to raise one thing. This is a subject we've talked about in the past, coastal resiliency plan. Now, in other words, is there a state or regional plan that's being done now that would alleviate or make moot any action by our part at this time? Or what should we be doing as a coastal town, and specifically the Conservation Commission, in connection with promoting or pursuing the creation and implementation of a coastal resiliency plan for Clinton?
Very timely question. So next week I am going over to Westbrook. There is a regional partnership that was applied through Westbrook, but covers a grant that was given to Clinton, Westbrook, Saybrook, and the borough of Fenwick. And the purpose of that grant funding is to generate a coastal resiliency plan for this sort of sub-region. It is just getting off the ground now. The final sort of scope and where we're kicking off and all that kind of stuff. We're having a preliminary conversation on this next week. And so I'll have more information for the February meeting to share. But what I think will likely happen is there may be some, individual town committees that get formed around this issue, because I think one of the things, I know it's been brought up at council, it's been brought up here, it's been brought up at the Planning and Zoning Commission level and ZBA for lots of different reasons, for all of the different pressures that the coastal areas are facing. And so I think, sort of a hybrid group of folks with representatives who have interest from a bunch of different lenses is going to be really important. So I've talked to Carl about this too. It sounds like that may be a direction that it takes, and it's been the thought process that we get this grant group kicked off with the planners from all of those jurisdictions, and then we come back and say, okay, here's some direction for each of the towns about what we're going to need to pull together to make this thing work.
Yeah, and let me submit this. You're saying it's basically going to be a regional effort among these towns that you listed.
But should come back with specific recommendations for Clinton itself. So it's a pot of money that looks at things holistically, but there should be individual town recommendations coming out of it.
Sure, and with regard to the grant, how much are you talking about?
Oh, I've got to go back and look. I think it was like 150 for the whole plan. And then,
Okay.
and part of the reason for this is wanting to tee up the town with some basic idea of what it's going to take to get us to engineering, cost estimating and pre-construction documents, if there are those kinds of projects to be done. What we're trying to do over time is build in shovel-ready projects. So when some of those more significant pots of money become available, we can act on them quickly.
And that's what I was going to say. I don't want Clinton to be behind the 8 ball with regard to all these other towns. I would like us to get as equal access as all the other towns to this grant money with regard to focusing on our town's interests and needs. But more importantly, I think it's very important that we do all of the initial work, particularly to the extent that we have a planner, with regard to seeing how much we can get of future funds, shovel-ready plans developed, so that we won't lose on the grant monies that are going to come out to make our town resilient.
Yep, I would imagine that either the next grant applications or the next round of capital funding will go toward, at least request for capital funding will go toward trying to get engineered plans that can essentially be just plopped into whatever grant pocket is available at the time.
Good. We had a revitalization of downtown plan that we had done back, 10, 15 years ago. But based upon that plan, we were able to use different parts of it to apply for different grants over the years. So it was great because we were able to jump on those grants opportunities because we already did the engineering studies, et cetera. It'd be nice to do the same thing here. So once they start instituting resiliency funding money for different projects, we can jump right on board and Clinton could get its share.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
So we should have that on the agenda then.
Yeah. And then maybe Abby, when it's important to give us an update, maybe those are the meetings you could attend.
Yep, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Okay. And maybe it's not important for you to attend the whole meeting, just portions, because you got a million other things to do as well.
True, but it's good for me. It's good for me to know what's going on here because you guys are doing important work. I mean, it's
the Conservation Commission, Larry. I mean,
that's it for me, Nick.
All right, super.
Excuse me one second. Sherry and or Abby, how do I tell, I'm sure there's a way looking on the GIS, exactly what percentage of the land in Clinton is dedicated open space? How do I?
So Couple of things on that. There's no analytic tools on our GIS viewer.
Okay.
We're contracted right now with Tie and Bond, and I could certainly, we have a new Tie and Bond representative that I could certainly ask to see if they can pull that for us and do some of that analytics. I have some money that can be spent toward that, not a lot. I did put in for capital funding in the next year to make sure that we have access in the town hall land use office to the software that we would need to be able to perform that kind of analysis in-house, because we have the technical capacity, we just don't have the tools. So that's our next ask. I will see if they have I believe that there are some open space layers already created, so it may not be a very big lift, and I'll see if they can do it for pennies. See what we can go for now.
Okay,
that's
because
nice.
I'm going back to that same article in the Hartford Courant where Lamont said he would love to see 10% of the entire state
Yep.
be set aside for dedicated open space. And so I just wondered how close we would be to a 10%.
Yeah, I can try to manually do some of that, but it's a lot easier if we can kind of run the calc through GIS. So I'll see what I can do to that.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank
I
you.
think the land trust already owns about 8 to 9%
Right.
of open space.
Really?
So the town is pretty close as a whole in reaching that
Oh,
goal,
wow.
if not already over.
Okay. Interesting to know. That's good to know. Great,
Yeah.
thank
That is
you.
good to know. Thanks, Larry.
The Land Trust owns like 800 or 900 acres, right?
Yeah, closer to 900. And then if you add Red Wing, and then you add, which isn't much acreage, but if you add that, and then the town also owns a lot of open space, although it's used for recreation or athletic, etc. It depends how you want to couch that definition, but
And I assume the Connecticut Water Company owns a ton too.
Yeah.
Mhm. And the state forests and yeah.
So yeah, we're probably over 10%.
I'd love to know that.
It's so rare when Clinton is actually above the line.
In this aspect, yes. Maybe.
Yes.
I don't.
Okay. In the interest of time, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
All opposed? Mark, are you there?
I'm an I, yes.
All right, guys. Hey, have a good month. I've got some letters to write. I'll probably not do that until this weekend, but have a great month.
All right, thanks. Good
Right.
meeting.
Good night, everybody.
Nice.
Take care. Nice meeting you, Abby.
Thanks, you too.